Hi everyone, welcome back to Box Delights. Today we're looking at Oathsworn into the Deepwood, a game by Jamie Jolly, published by Shadowborn Games. This is a huge box of stuff, oh my gosh, and it weighs a ton. There is so much content in here. This is everything in the box. There are a ton of miniatures for this game, but I don't have those. This is the standee version. This is the retail standee version of the game. And even that is huge. So everything I'm going to show you is what's in this box. I can't possibly show you everything. We're not going to do a full playthrough, but we are going to have a look inside. I'm going to give you a quick overview of what the game's all about. Try and keep it spoiler free because this is a campaign game where the story unravels and new things are revealed. Okay. A new player, it says, there's a big warning here that tells you, there's boxes to be opened, there's envelopes or books, cards. Don't look at anything until you're ready to. But you're going to start, once you open this, with this sheet, and it'll tell you how to organise everything. And boy, this took me, I don't know, well over an hour. But that's part of the fun. Getting a new game and unboxing it is all part of the fun. You do get a board. You've got tons of books. There's a storybook here. This thing is huge. There's so much content. I've actually printed off a few little things as well, so I'll keep that aside. But some of this stuff, there's one envelope. It's envelope number 1. You're going to open it as soon as you begin the game, so I'm not going to be spoiling very much by showing you what's inside envelope number 1, but I probably will try and keep some of the other stuff a little bit more secret. There's a character sheets here. This is one of the things that I've printed off for myself. So there's an encounter book or counter rule book. There's a journal in here. We've got storybook chapters 1 to 11. You've got storybook chapters 12 to 21. This is the story rule book. Something to tell you how to put some larger miniatures together. We've got lots of secret mystery envelopes. Boards for different chapters of the game. There are some miniatures, although I said this is the standee version. There are some miniatures in here. And then we've got trays of cards. More envelopes, more mystery envelopes. And character cards and boxes of playing cards. We got custom dice in here as well. So much content. We got the counter tray in here. We've got a whole bunch of terrain tiles as well. Lots of tokens. And then you've also got, I'll take this one out. We've got different characters that you can play have their own little baggies, so you can pack up, because it's such a huge, long, adventurous campaign where your characters are developing. You've got little baggies for storing your character cards in and so on. So, tons and tons of content. Here's our standees. A lot and some stands. So there's going to be standees appearing. We've got the plastic stands for our standees. We've got a regular size ones here. But there are some huge things in here. So it is telling you there's some bigger whatevers to come. Alright. And do not look at the faces of these boards, it says. Alright, so there's tons of boards. Look at them. This is why this thing weighs so much. These are all just cards and boards. Right? So much content. And really, I've just dipped my toe in the water of this. But let's set things out a little bit. Let's set up a story, set up an encounter, and just discover a little bit about what this game is about. Now, this game's a game of two halves. It's a campaign game, I've already told you this. So you're not just like playing a game, putting it away, setting up from the same point, playing a game. This is a campaign. You're playing through a series of what they call chapters. And each chapter is split into two halves. There's a story half and an encounter half. And those two games are very different from each other. The story part is kind of like a choose your own adventure. So this is a storybook, chapters 1 to 11. We've got chapters 12 to 21 that follow. So you'll play through 21 stories, 21 encounters. The story, you can either use a companion app. There is a link to this. There's a link here on the story rulebook. You've got a corresponding encounter rulebook. So the story part is like choose your own adventure. Go to page 12, go to page 13, take a choice, and so on and so on. Okay. I really love the story part of the game. There is a general story arc that these chapters are following. It's about developing the characters in your company. We've got a company of 4 characters. I called mine the World Cutters. This is their free company sheet. So in the story, they're going to be leveling up. They're going to be finding items. They're going to be picking up tokens that give them little specials, rerolls, that kind of stuff. Items, weapons, armor, in this wonderfully unfolding, highly narrative story. Incidentally, the encounter part is where you're going to be on a battle map and you're going to be doing like skirmishes and you're going to be fighting different end of chapter bosses and their minions. Now, I've told you this is the standee version, but there are miniatures included. I showed you when we were unboxing. Your free company consists of 4 Oathsworn characters. I'm playing solo, so I've got one of what they call a full character. This is my main character. This is who I'm kind of taking on the role as. And then I've got 3 companions. They're kind of like a scaled down version. Your company always consists of 4 Oathsworn characters, and any number of those can be full characters. So I could play with just 1 full character. I could play 2, 3, or 4 full characters. The rest are filled out with these companion characters. So playing solo, I like to play just 1 solo full character with these kind of mini scaled down companions. And like I said, although this is the standee version, we do have miniatures for our Oathsworn. So this is Ursus Warbear. I've got a ranger and I've got a priest, and these are companions to my main full character, which is an AV Harbinger. When we go into the encounter, they'll be getting placed on the map. In the story mode, we use one of these characters to reflect where our company is currently located. This is the city of Bastogne. This is a series of locations with story elements associated with each, and as we move from location to location, we use up time, and time sees us clocking down to chapter end. We've got starting items and you can collect more. So for example, the priest, who I've named Peter, has a 2-handed mace, the Great Maul, and some armour, a pig iron coat. Our ranger, who I've named Regina, has a short bow and some tattered raw hide armour. These are going to give them different might, different attack strength, and different defence, okay, different armour, different types of armour. The Warbear, who I've named Ungmar, has a felling axe, and Agatha, my main character, the AV Harbinger, has a gnarled branch, just a staff and some clothing that gives her a basic armour of 2. So each Oathsworn character has a character sheet. These are just ones I've printed off, but there is a pad that comes with the game. And they can collect permanent tokens. These are kind of effects that grant your character tokens that can be expended at the beginning of each chapter. So at the moment, Agatha's got an empowered ×3 token. These are some tokens that we've been collecting. This is our money. But there's 12 different Oathsworn characters you can choose from in all, and here they're different miniatures. So a standee version that comes with really detailed, high quality miniatures. You will need to glue them together to save them falling apart. Right, so those 12 miniatures for your Oathsworn But we've also got some NPCs as well, so you've got a whole bunch of miniatures for these. So these are allies that can join your company. They're not Oathsworn, but they are allies that will temporarily join and fight for you. Everything else is going to be represented by standees. Now, I highly recommend when you first get the game referencing the components part, all right? So although there's a start here first kind of sheet, do go and reference this, cross-reference this, because otherwise when it's telling you to put things where, you're not going to know what's what, right? So this is a full list of components. Now, if you have the miniatures version, the full miniature, you get the mystery chest, and there'll be boxes with mystery miniatures in. In the standee version, you get envelopes. Okay, there's 31, it says in the standee version, only 11 in the miniatures version, but there's mystery envelopes that can contain what would otherwise be in these boxes. All right, cool. We'll have a look at those once we get into we'll have a quick look at the encounter phase. Now, one interesting thing that I want to cover off, because it's a unique part of the game, and that is during different parts of the story, when you're walking around, you're gathering clues, you're going from location to location, you're upgrading your characters, following the narrative of the story. At different points, it's going to ask you to make some checks. Maybe you'll have to do a check to see if your pockets get picked when you're walking around the town square, for example. Checks like this in the game are performed in two ways. You can either use dice or you can use cards, or indeed you can use a combination of both. And this is really cool. A basic check is performed with the white cards or the white dice. These can be scaled up, so the better you become at performing a check, the higher up you go. So whites are like the weakest, yellow, red, black, the strongest. Now let's say, I don't know, we're going to be pickpocketed and we have to perform a check. And the difficulty of the check, let's say, is 4. We can choose to draw any number of cards, roll any number of dice, or a combination of them. The dice have different sides. We've got 2 blanks, we've got 2 1s, we've got a 2, and we've got a critical 2. We can choose to roll 10 dice or pull to 10 cards. Let's say we choose to roll 4 dice. We roll our dice. We're looking for a difficulty of 4. It's a difficulty of 4 check. Okay, we've got to roll 4 on these dice. All right, we've got it. We've got 2, 4, 6, 7. Great job. But you might just say, well, why don't you just roll tons of dice? Okay, why don't you roll the maximum 10? Irrespective of what you roll, remember we're looking for a 4. If you roll 2 blanks, then it's an automatic fail. So you can see if you roll lots of dice, you've got more chance of rolling 2 blanks, automatic fail, irrespective of what you roll. This 2 in this kind of jaggedy line, this is called a critical success. If you get a critical, you can roll another die or draw another card. Right, so if I rolled this, in my, let's say I rolled this, then I've got a critical here. I can roll 1 more die. And on these critical re-rolls, you can ignore the blanks. So these are really good. And if you keep rolling crits, you can keep adding. Okay, so you roll another crit, we can roll another die. Ignore the blank. Okay? So you can accumulate high scores. In place of a die, you can pull a card. And it's exactly the same theory. So these cards will have 1s on them. They'll have crit 2s, they'll have blanks, and they'll have regular 2s. But the thing about the card draw is, as you draw from this deck, the shape of this deck changes, the odds of rolling or pulling blanks will change. On your die roll, the odds never change, okay? Because the die roll is unaffected by previous die rolls, whereas card draws are affected by previous card draws. And obviously once you get to the bottom, you will reshuffle and create a new deck. So that's the way checks work. And of course, whether you pass or fail a check may change the direction of the story. Okay, so that's the story part of the game. Now, if you want to, so as you get to the end of the chapter's story, you'll then lead into the encounter where you're kind of fighting and having this battle with any allies that you've accumulated using the weapons that you've collected and upgrades and skills of your free company. Now, if you want to, you can skip the story part and go straight into the encounter. This is called the instant action mode. And as you head into an encounter, so this is going to be encounter number 1. I'm just showing off some of the artwork as we get in here. Encounter number 1. There's an instant action mode where you read the narrative and it tells you how to set up the encounter because you've skipped the story. So for example, through the story mode, I might have collected some tokens or gathered some items. The instant action is going to kind of simulate that or emulate the conclusion of that story just in one page, right? And then it'll take you into the first chapter and what components you need, obviously depending on whether you've got the standee version or the mystery chest version. We'll set up the encounter and then we'll have that boss fight. I say if you want the full experience, you'll play the story mode, which it varies greatly. It may be an hour, hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. All right, let's jump ahead. We'll set up encounter 1 and we'll show you what encounters look like. Here we are then. I've set up encounter 1, again trying to avoid as many spoilers as possible. The rulebook will illustrate encounter 1, so you kind of know what's coming. But here's the standees. You can see they look great. We've got a large miniature here with a big old base. It has a facing with an arrow just here, so the encounter book will tell you where to place. We've got some large brood rats. Again, they have a facing according to the head of their standee, like so. There are some terrain features on the map, so these are some trees that are blocking as obstacles. And you can see we've now got ourselves a fixed game board. There is just one game board. It is double-sided, so there is another terrain on the other side here. We've got our company of 1 full Oathsworn and 3 companions. If any of these get killed, you can substitute in an ally. All right, you've got 4 to start with, and again, we do have miniatures for your allies. They can substitute in for defeated Oathsworn. My full character has a hand of 7 ability cards. Each full character gets their 7. Starting, you have these starting abilities, ones with this star just here. You see? The companions, they don't have a hand of cards. So when you're playing solo with 1 full character, you're only managing 1 hand of cards. Instead, they have these archetype cards. Each is unique for the different companions and also double-sided. So when the encounter begins, you can choose a side for each of your companions. So the priest here has 2 abilities. Desperate Player is 1, and then we've got Pillar and Path below, or Desperate Player and Blessing. You get to choose which ones you want. Miniatures are here on the board, so you get to choose. The encounter setup will tell you where your deployment hexes are. And also, each encounter has an encounter board and a set of special rules. We've travelled beyond the city gates and been ambushed by the brood mother and her brood of giant rats. Each encounter's divided into 3 stages, and we've got this stage deck that consists of cards from stage 1, 2, and 3. So this is encounter 1. So we've got the 1 in the top here, and then stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. Each round, so the encounter's a series of rounds, you'll be drawing a stage card. We were ambushed as it goes, so we jumped straight to this stage. Otherwise, we might have a chance to act before the encounter. But ambushed, we're going to get surprised, if you like. So we have this stage. As we step through these, we're moving through the stages 1, 2, 3. And each stage represents the changing behaviour of our enemy. A stage can also finish prematurely, so if we're mid stage 1 and we have to push to stage 2, we'll discard these, we'll move to stage 2, and so on and so on. That can happen by these special rules. So for example, on Broodmother here it says stage 2 triggers when the Broodmother loses 2 of these dice. The encounter book will be telling you how to set these encounters up, alright? How to set up the map, which components you'll need, all that kind of stuff. The encounter will end when we get rid of all these dice from the encounter board, or if all of our Oathsworn are defeated. So each encounter is going to be presenting different kind of challenges for your company. So for example, this first one here that we've been ambushed with, Encourage, is going to release a brood. 3 more giant rats are going to come out. So we'll get 3 more giant rats in their standees, and they're going to come onto the board. So we've been ambushed by these additional giant rats. And it's going to move 3 northwest, 1, 2, 3, something like this. Then we begin a new phase, and that would normally start with a refresh. During our refresh, we regenerate animus. This is animus. This is like energy. We've got a regen value of 7, which means we move 7 animus from the left to the right. That's now what's available to us this phase. Companions do the same. They've got 2 and a regen value of 2. And then in the Oathsworn phase, we can start spending this animus. So for example, to move, we'll spend animus. So if we spend, say, 3 animus, we can move 3 spaces. 1, 2, 3. Or you can use your animus to play your cards. So for example, Backstab here costs a fixed 3 animus, whereas other cards like Talon Strike has multiple effects at different costs. So you can use your cards in different ways, do attacks, pull off specials, support other characters in your company. What's important is when you play a card, you pay the cost and you place the card on one of the cooldown slots. So around your player board are these numbers, 3, 2, 1 and 0. So if I wanted to play Foreshadowing, for example, a friendly character within 3 range gains either a reroll or defense token, or we can attack. This card has a cooldown of 2, so it's going up here in the 2 spots. On a subsequent turn, if we played another card, this one costs 4 animus, with a cooldown of 2, that will push any existing cards to the next cooldown slot. So it's like you've got a momentum of abilities or attacks. And then if we have a cooldown 1 card, then once cards move to the 0 spots, if you battle flow a 0 spot, this goes back to your hand. And also during the refresh, any cards that are in battle flow 0 come back to your hand. So you can see you have to sequence your ability cards to push them back to your hand. Talon Strike here has, for 1 animus, battle flow 1 card. So that's another way of pushing cards around. Obviously attacks, this is a way to face off against your enemy, and you can be using weapons to do those attacks. And what's important is that this large enemy, you can see, is going to occupy these 7 hexes, like so. And this corresponds to these 7 hexes here on the encounter board. So when you damage these or hit these different hexes, that represents where, where you're hitting on the left flank, the right flank, front or rear. So you can see how the flow of the game works. You're playing cards, pushing cooldown, using battle flow to bring the cards back to your hands, refreshing your animus. So, players will be taking turns, right? So in the Oathsworn phase, you'll be taking turns. Once you've finished, you've spent all the animus you want to, we'll move to the encounter phase, end of phase, back to the refresh, and so on and so on. Okay. So managing your hand and the cooldown and battle flow of your cards is really important to a full character Oathsworn. For your companions, instead of having a hand of cards, they've got these abilities and costs on the left here. So Ursus Warbear, for one of his 2 animus, can move 4, can attack. What it says, perform a special ability on the archetype card. And again, once they've completed their 2 turns, they'll refresh during the refresh phase. right? Okay, so that's the basic flow of things. How do attacks work? Some attacks have range, so some ability cards will offer ranged attacks. I don't think this, yeah, so Deadeye's shot here has an unarmed range 3 attack. It costs an additional 2 animus. Range is just counting hexes. There are line of sight rules, so these blocking hexes will block line of sight, for example. And then once you attack, it's just the same as doing those checks during story mode, but this time you're using your might. Agatha here has 1 yellow cube in might. What that means is she can draw 1 yellow might card for her attack and then add as many white as she wishes. Remember, it's cards or dice. Yeah, cards or dice, or a mixture of both. And these will get upgraded as the game goes on. So maybe she has 2 yellow and a red, or maybe a yellow, a red, and a black. So for her attack, she can draw 1 yellow, 1 red, 1 black, and then as many whites as she wishes. Okay, so let's assume we got, yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. Again, 2 or more blanks is a miss. No damage is done. Now, unarmed, can't use your might track. Okay, we're not using our weapons. The gnarled branch is giving Agatha 1 yellow might. Okay, other weapons are going to add stuff on here. But let's say we had weapons enough to give yellow, red, black. We're doing an armed attack. Yellow, red, black. And let's say we want to throw 2 whites in there. Remember, 2 blanks is a miss. Let's see what we got. 1, a blank. 3, 6, 7, and 8. We're successful. It's a hit of value 8. Remember too, we can power cards, so you can upgrade them. You can upgrade a white to a yellow, or a red to a black, yellow to a red. And then next year we're figuring out how much damage you did. And this is where we look at defense. Defense is not a simple, strength 8, defense 2, that leaves 6. It's a divider, all right? So we've got a strength 8 attack. Broodmother has defense of 2. We divide damage by defense to get the HP lost. So 8 divided by 2 is 4 HP lost. And you can see here we're attacking, this is the front, this flank. We've done 4 damage. Clock that down to 2. For a minion, so the giant rats, they have defense of 2. They only have a yellow and white might. Broodmother has 2 red, 3 yellow. Oof. But these little minions, they only have 1 health. So a hit's a hit and they're gone. Okay. Once we've knocked one of these down and removed the last one, this is 2 health now, then that location is broken. So we've covered us attacking them. What about when the enemies attack us? Well, typically the boss and the minions will attack as part of the encounter phase, and one of these stage cards does its thing. So for example here, attack target. Target's typically whoever's closest. And also when you break down one of these dice, you can see when this flank is revealed, the boss will attack. Not the minions, but the boss. And that happens all over the place. Different things will happen at different times. Okay. There's a couple of significant differences when they attack us. First off, the enemies, they ignore blanks. Right, so they don't miss. Their attacks will hit. But also, as you break down these dice, their might is reduced, and it's always the highest one. So as we knock these off, they're losing one of these mights. And finally, they can't use dice. They're always using the cards. And they've got a separate deck. And these attacks can be pretty strong. So there's one extra thing you can use your cards for. You can use a card and stick it in its cooldown spot for its defense value. This doesn't cost animus, typically, but it adds defense. And of course, you're using your defense value, dividing the same way, whatever the total damage was, divided by your defense. Use these cards if you wish, support each other, use your abilities to support each other, add defense tokens, all that kind of stuff to boost your defense above your default armor. Use abilities to recover health, all sorts of combinations going on here. And with every encounter, every boss bringing their own unique set of rules. Same for each Oathsworn and Companion. All the different weapons, all the different upgrades, ability card upgrades that are coming incidentally. So if we look at Harbinger, this is their little save bag. So you can put all your stuff in these little bags between games. In here, that's their companion card. There's a card separate. Everything behind this is a potential upgrade. Okay, with different cooldowns, different abilities. All right, these are all the different things that can become upgraded. All right. Save these in these bags. It's brilliant. So much content, so much story, and there's a lot to do and a lot to discover before you run out of things to do in Oathsworn into the Deepwood. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.